Today, I wanted to look at a hypothetical. If Galactus existed in the DC universe, who would his herald be? First of all, this video idea was suggested from somebody in my Discord server, so if you want to get in there, talk to some like-minded people who love the same things you do, and if you want to give some of your own video suggestions that I could get around to, the link to it will be in the description below. Now, obviously, with this video, it means that Galactus exists in DC, and there has to be a history behind the character, and that is something that can be made up, whatever your headcanon is telling you. I could only imagine Galactus would be tied to the new and old god history, but we're not going to necessarily be going into that. Instead, we're looking at 7 characters I chose that could potentially be one of the best options for Galactus's herald in DC. Some of these characters might be obvious choices to some of you, and some of the other ones I go with might be a little more unorthodox, characters that you wouldn't think could be a good herald. So let's waste no more time and get right into the first character. That first character is Dr. Fate. Being a big picture type of guy, Fate would potentially look at Galactus as a necessary evil, regardless of his personal feelings on the matter or just on the being of Galactus in general. Fate scales on the level of one of the most powerful characters in the DC universe and has spells and abilities that can rival any form of power: strength, intelligence, speed, magic, etc. Based off of who Kent Nelson is, very often he would rather not fight, but if forced to, or if fate is called in favor for Galactus, he'll do what he must. I think Dr. Fate has the persona, the attitude, and simply just the look of a character who would be a really good herald for Galactus. Now, when we look at the herald, we are unfortunately dealing with a character who has to do some pretty crappy and scummy things. The herald basically needs to doom entire civilizations to death and destruction. But one of the most important things is that the herald does have a conscience, and that at the end of the day, they do end up turning. At least most of these heralds I've chosen will be doing that, not all of them. I think what would be cool for Dr. Fate is being in a position where he literally cannot question fate or destiny. He can't deny it. Being somebody who would work for Galactus and is now kind of tight-roped into this situation where his fate is leading him down a path where everything he does needs to be in favor for Galactus, and how does he break that cycle? I think would be really interesting. Now, I will say for him in this alternate universe of DC, there would probably need to be a little bit of rewriting and a change in how the helmet works. I couldn't imagine the Lords of Order would want to be sharing destiny and fate with Galactus, let alone even come near to working with him. Regardless of how it happens, as I said, I think Dr. Fate simply has the presence of what a herald would be, how they would sound, how they would act, what they would do. I think this is one of the most interesting options. Then we look at Martian Manhunter. Personality-wise, he's certainly close to Silver Surfer as a pacifist not wanting to fight. His powers and abilities are on a ridiculous level, along with the fact that his strength is nearly unlimited, along with other abilities he has that are kind of unlimited, capable of handling most, if not all, threats coming his way. I do believe he would bide as much time as possible, likely leading Galactus to less populated planets. That way the masses aren't being offered in sacrifice. This one to me is really good because Martian Manhunter would be stuck in a situation he really does not want to be in, but he has been promised that if he essentially takes this job, the Martian people and Mars itself perhaps will be spared, and Galactus has promised to save the planet, just as he has done so for Silver Surfer. Martian Manhunter's empathy, his compassion is on a whole other level. He would struggle being the herald long term. I think in a short term capacity, he would make these really tough decisions knowing it's sparing his people. I don't know how many times he could constantly doom civilizations before he himself would break. And that's why I could see Jean really hating this job and pitying every single decision he makes even though it's what he must do to potentially keep his people safe and alive. And as much as I do think he as Herald would really fit, it looks good too when you kind of vision it. At the end of the day, I don't know how long he could actually be tied down to Galactus, but I still think it would be a really interesting option to kind of dabble in and see how it narratively would work. Then I have Sinestro. This would be more of a you do something for me, I'll do something for you situation, where Galactus could and would amplify Sinestro's ring output and power as he prepares Oa for domination, since that's where both of them would probably want to attack first. And in saying that, I could see Sinestro and Galactus having their own reasons, but a reason nonetheless to remove Oa, the Guardians of the Universe, and the Green Lanterns from existence. It would also be very suiting for the Devourer of Worlds to have acquired assistance from DC's most unique substance in their universe, the Lantern Rings. And what better Lantern Ring to have than yellow, which I personally believe Galactus would be fear dominating, so yellow fits perfectly. I don't think Sinestro would be accepting the position of Herald because he is begging Galactus not to take his people or his homeworld away. I don't even really think Sinestro would have that form of empathy, really. But as I said, this is more of a partnership. It would make sense that Galactus would want to remove the Guardians of the Universe, these very powerful, all-knowing beings, along with the Green Lanterns, which are glorified space cops, who would be keeping tabs on Galactus at any time in any way possible. And then with Sinestro, he obviously has a vendetta against the Guardians and the Green Lanterns too, so this is very beneficial for both parties. I'm sure this would not end well. Sinestro would probably want to betray or even try and fool Galactus, and Galactus would severely punish him or maybe even kill him. But as I've stated some of these reasons, it could work some way. Then I have Supergirl. In an alternate world, perhaps Krypton is not all the way destroyed, and Supergirl strikes a deal to serve Galactus in return to save her homeworld. Very similar to what I said with Martian Manhunter and Mars. Given her younger age, her emotional vulnerability, and even her anger that they've shown she has over the past couple of years, Galactus could use that to take advantage of her immense power and use that power on other worlds for him. Glowing from solar radiation, leaving behind solar trails, and the ability to rip through hyperspace, she could give off that particular vibe of Silver Surfer. I think a narrative we could possibly be looking at here for Supergirl is a character who has not learned to be a hero and what it means to be a hero before she decides to take this Herald position. We could see a Supergirl who becomes very jaded, gives into that anger side of her personality, and features just no remorse and no pity, and does go planet to planet, civilization to civilization, allowing her master to eat and run through it roughshod. What would be really cool is how similar it could look or feel when Supergirl served Darkseid in that Batman Superman comic run, or as the movie is called, Batman Superman Apocalypse. She could simply just be a character that you cannot question, you cannot talk, you cannot negotiate. She knows her job, she knows what it means to keep her homeworld protected, and she will do it for Galactus. Or you could deal with a Supergirl who, as time goes on, she starts to get tired of it. She no longer wants to doom these civilizations. That would be really neat, as if she came across Earth, doomed their planet to Galactus, and that would be her first time meeting her cousin Superman. And what feelings would she get from that? How would that confuse her mentality and her decision making? Next up, I went with Lobo, who would be one of the characters for sure who's going to enjoy this. He may not be the most powerful cosmic being out there, but he would take this job to destroy planets and civilizations for fun. His love for fighting would force anything of interest to come out from certain worlds to to see if it would be worth Galactus's time. And he is one of the best galactic trackers, as his job is to be a bounty hunter. So now just elevate by a whole lot on what he's now tracking and hunting, which again is planets and civilizations. Now, over history, Lobo has been bad, good, anti-villain, anti-hero. He has his moments. He's done a lot of things that have made you look at the character and say he might not be all this villainous, but then he's done things that make you look at the character and say there's no redeeming that. He's awful. From this perspective, we'd be taking a Lobo like that, who is not redeemable, is awful, and would not be second-guessing the job he has taken for Galactus. He'd be reveling in it. He'd be loving it. He would be having fun. To add on to how he would kind of connect to Silver Surfer, perhaps, there's no personality similarities. There's no familiarity in terms of how the characters are modeled, but particularly an item that helps you traverse and surf through space. Lobo has that with his space bike. Now, in terms of Silver Surfer, when he or she shows up at a planet, even if that planet is dominated by beings that have crazy superpowers like an Earth, Silver Surfer is so powerful that even if they can't get through every superpowered being on Earth, they can handle their own just fine until Galactus shows up. Lobo might not be on the side of that. He might struggle when handling those types of planets. He's not that powerful. Besides that, since not every single planet is going to have the type of power that Earth does, Galactus is going to have a herald who will more than likely never betray him and who loves doing this type of job. Next up, I decided to go with Lightray, a noble and compassionate new god who has to fundamentally change in order to serve Galactus, causing moral conflict that would be interesting to see play out narrative-wise. His light-based powers, connected to his appearance and persona, would likely be one of the best translations to DC's version of Silver Surfer. And in terms of loyalty, he would be ideal, as long as whatever Galactus has on him to use Lightray lasts long enough before he finds his strength and morality to abandon his role as Herald, which is 100% what would happen here. Lightray would not be the Herald of Galactus forever, and the time would come where the benefits of being his Herald would be severely outweighed by what he has to do. This would have to be some sort of new god, old god negotiation or deal, some sort of testament that would need to make Lightray the Herald of Galactus, especially if you consider how much loyalty Lightray has to Highfather. This would not be a job that Lightray would be accepting on his own just to do it. New Genesis would need to be at threat, or even simply the new gods would need to be at threat here for him to have to do this. Or even if for a particular reason Highfather would have to order Lightray, this is something he's just gonna have to do. The plan will be revealed to him down the line. Very similar to Martian Manhunter, I think this is a job that Lightray would just absolutely hate doing. Would he be good at it? Probably, but that doesn't mean he wants to even do it in the first place. Now, last for this video, but certainly not the least of DC characters who could be the Herald of Galactus, I decided to go with Orion. As a war god and the best new god warrior out there, Orion would have all the skills needed to be Galactus's destructive envoy. It may not be a surfboard, but drawing in some form of familiarity is Orion's astro harness, allowing him to rip through hyperspace travel, track information, use energy blasts, and even boom tube technology. Trained in war, but wanting peace and solace, his time as Herald could present a timeless tale of one who wishes to be good and fair, but is stuck in a situation where they can't be. Going back to back in new god choices from Lightray to Orion, I do believe that one of the first heralds, at least for Galactus, would be of new god origin. It just makes sense. Those are some of the first beings that Galactus would be coming to quarrel with. He'd have a long-standing history with them, most likely. There is bound to be one of these characters that he would pluck out to be his herald. I almost feel like Orion has the perfect blend of almost every single character that I've had on this list. He has the new god connection, like Lightray. He has has the fight in him and the mastery of combat like Lobo. He brings in that cosmic presence like Supergirl, Sinestro, Lobo, even Martian Manhunter. He wishes to be more compassionate and more merciful like a Martian Manhunter, and he continues to question if being Galactus's herald is truly his destiny, his fate, like Dr. Fate. When doing the job, I could see Orion really saving face. He abandons how he truly feels, and he accepts that this is what he must do in the moment. But in the background, as he flies around space, as he takes moments for himself, as he has time to reflect and think, he hates it. It brings him to the brink of being the most emotionally vulnerable he has ever been in his life. He can't take this anymore. He has doomed too many species. He doesn't want this job. Maybe in this alternate world, this is a deal that Darkseid and Galactus have struck. Perhaps it's Darkseid saying, "Don't come after Apocalypse, and in return, I will offer my very powerful and skilled son to be your herald so you can eat any other planet in the universe that you want." Orion as herald could bring in one of the more interesting stories of all these characters. It could really open up Orion to even being one of the most interesting characters in DC's cosmic world. Not saying he's not interesting, you're just adding on to it. So there you go, 7 characters that I think could be really good fits for DC's Herald of Galactus for their own various and unique reasons. Personally, if I had to choose my favorites, or maybe my top 3, one of them would be Lobo, just because I think the idea of Galactus's herald being a guy who absolutely loves this job and being a vastly different contrast in personality than Galactus himself would be really interesting to see, and possibly a lot of fun. Dare I say fun, considering what they're doing is destroying civilizations, but you guys get what I mean. Second, I would go with Dr. Fate, because A, Dr. Fate is one of the most powerful beings in DC, which fits right in line with being the Herald, but it also shows that now Galactus has a direct connection into the magical world, that he could now take advantage and utilize the helmet of Naboo and its user for his own gain. Third, and probably my most favorite, just explained why, would be Orion. I think this narratively has one of the most interesting outcomes on how he became Herald, how he handles being Herald, and how he manages to overcome this job and join the better side, the good side, if you will. I think there's a lot you can do with this one. But with that being said, you guys let me know in the comments below which DC characters you think could be the Herald of Galactus. I could almost guarantee you, if DC Comics were to actually do some sort of crossover like this, right now we would be sitting with a Batman and or Superman becoming the Heralds of Galactus. I think that would truly be a disservice to how many great characters we have in DC that could make a story like this really interesting. But that is all I have for you on this video, everyone. I do hope you all enjoy it, and until the next time, I will talk to you all very soon.